This is Khatt Chronicles, design stories from the Arab world. My name is Huda Smitshuijzen AbiFarès, and I have with me today Jordanian graphic designers Omar Al-Zo'bi and Yousef Abedrabbo. Omar and Yousef are the founders of Eyen Studio in Amman, Jordan. Eyen was established in 2016 and is a design collective where designers and creative thinkers of multidisciplinary practices congregate and collaborate. The graphic design work is characterized by witty design solutions and culturally sensitive Arabic typography for a variety of local and regional clients. Their work has been exhibited internationally and locally at the prestigious Amman Design Week, for example. Recently, they extended their activities to educational practices, offering intensive type design workshops and courses that invite experimental explorations and play. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Omar and Yousef. Hi Omar, hi Yousef.
Hello.
It's so nice to be here with you and to see the results of your work and to kind of be in the energy of your space. So I'm going to kind of like try to bring us back to the first time we met. In my recollection, the first time we ever met in person was here in Amman at Amman Design Week, I think, in 2017. I don't remember which year. Can you tell the listeners about your journey as designers? Like, where did you start studying? How did you guys come to, how did you meet? When did you decide to start Eyen Studio and so forth?
Oh, actually, it's a pleasure to also have you with us here. It's always nice having you in Amman, Huda. So you better come more often. My education started actually as a graphic design student at AUB between the years of 2006 and 2010. I went into graphic design actually without knowing what graphic design is. But I think this also tackles on what we spoke of earlier, is that personally I feel that the program itself, or how the foundation year is established, is where you actually start understanding what graphic design is, so you're actually in it or you just leave. So yeah, I'm actually someone who had probably no passion in graphic design, but through my education and practice became passionate about graphic design, and particularly culturally sensitive and Arabic graphic design. I then went on to practicing as a graphic designer, became also a brand consultant for an airline, and then through friends, Omar and I met. Actually, I met Omar before meeting Omar. I met Omar through a postcard thrown in Beirut while I was studying on the floor in the print shop while printing a project for a packaging project I had at university. And my friend was like, "You don't know Omar?" I'm like, "No, who's this Omar? This is a cool postcard." And he's like, "He's a Jordanian designer." I'm like, "No, sorry, I don't know him." And then probably 4 or 5 years later, we met at a cafe with friends and so on. And we just conversation just took us about Arabic typography, and it was still a younger design scene locally primarily, but also regionally. Like type design was still Arabic type design was still starting to happen with Khatt and everything.
We met at that cafe and then we left, and then I do remember we parked outside Bilweb there. And we sat in the car and we spoke for 5 hours straight. We couldn't even feel the time. We just ended up loving the same things, obsessed about the same things, hating the same things. So I think.
But I felt it's also what we. Sorry, what we lacked then, which is what now in retrospect what we're trying to do, is that we did not have the outlet to speak about design, to find people of similar interests in design. The basic thing of talking about it, and so it was such a breath of fresh air, because studied abroad, worked abroad, came back, I knew no one within the design scene. I didn't have this same trajectory of every Jordanian designer, actually.
Because neither of you studied in Jordan design, right? So it's kind of normally your network becomes an extension of your student friends and whatever, and so if you study abroad and come back, you're like a foreigner.
Exactly. So when you find someone who has the same interests, so you hold on. You're like, okay.
Exactly. And good luck.
It's funny. I remember meeting Omar before meeting Omar also, because he was one of the first people that signed up to the Khatt Foundation website,
Yeah.
and he was so cool. And I was like, oh, I love this guy. And then when I met him, I also loved him even more. Because he was even more than what I had imagined he would be. Like, he's much cooler than in real life even. And it was really funny. It was like you said, sometimes it's interesting, like you meet people, and even though you think like the possibility of having anything in common with them is like small, and then you meet them and it's like you felt like you meet your soulmate, you know, you're just like, I know this person all my life, and I just met him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so did you have that, I guess you had that moment
Oh
in
my
your
God,
car, you're
yeah.
like, okay, I found my
Definitely.
soulmate here,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
design soulmate.
Absolutely, yeah.
When was that? Which year?
15?
No.
14? 14,
Yeah,
2014.
2014.
Okay, so that's like just before you started.
Just before we started Eyen, or at least like functioning as Eyen, you know. I'm mostly a self-taught graphic designer. I also didn't do bachelor's in graphic design. I did it in information systems in Brunel. But I've always had a knack for graphic design, I think. I was like, ever since I was like a blogger, air quotes. When I was a student in school, I used to like drawing, but I never like studied it or like took any courses in it. And then I finished, but I always wanted to like experiment with like graphic design, and then I was lucky enough to like say, okay, خلصت البachelor's. I did my master's with Camberwell in graphic design, and then I came back. I worked alongside product designers at the beginning. I worked at a local branding company, Syntax, and
This is sort of like an alternative design school, Syntax.
Syntax, it's a rite of passage almost, you know, for like Jordanian designers. And then رحت عملت الماسترز actually, وبعدين رجعت and I also then ended up working in advertising for 5 years. And this is when Yousef and I met. Like, he was a brand manager of an airline and I was working in advertising. So we knew what corporate was, you know, like.
And it was not where you wanted to spend your life. It was not a happy place.
No, absolutely.
No, but it wasn't a happy place, but I feel like it was a necessary step in both our careers to go through that. Although when we look back there, but it like for me at least, if I was always within a design studio setup, there are so many things I wouldn't have been exposed to that you're only exposed to through ad agencies or through the corporate life, which I think are important for a designer to understand.
How did you go about finding your clients, and how would you describe like the general work that you do? I mean, you're still doing branding work, but then for a different type of clientele, I guess. And was that something like...
I think the first one that kind of like inaugurated Eyen, I would say, it was when we pitched and won the branding for Amman Design Week. Okay,
so that was your start.
That was our start.
When was that?
The 2015. It was, صح?
So the first Amman Design.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I think and because we were like also heavily involved with the team regarding, you know, the strategy and the communications, so we were lucky enough to also like tap into like all of the insane research that they've been conducting, and to see something of that scale in Jordan. And I think we were lucky enough, you know, to be like part of that. It almost tinted exactly our desire, and I think both Yousef and I, we were almost like, it was like an unsaid agreement that we're not gonna go after, you know, unfavorable, just money-making, you know, massive corporations. We really wanted to work surrounding like culture. Mm-hmm. And the other one, food, you know, like, we do have like I think if I can say we have like 3 main obsessions. I mean, you can say like it's culture, food and beverage, and the Arabic letter. I think those three things, I think these are the main commonalities, you know.
And I think naturally, like most of our clients turned out to be like within those 3. without us actually seeking that.
Yeah,
So
you
just
manifest
naturally,
them.
we manifested that, okay, culture, food, and this is what happened, and we're grateful for that. And then I think after Eyen Design, I think it's similar to so many things. You start by working with people you know, so they start hiring you, but then you start, luckily, I think throughout the years, it's word of mouth, I think, that just really like people who had good, pleasant experiences with working with us, and then other people seeing our work, and they just approach us. So luckily, we didn't have to do any like business development work so far. People would just come knocking our doors looking for our services.
Because we have the method that says باب النجار مخلع. The door of the carpenter is in shambles. What do we say? But like even when it comes down to, and this is such a selfless graphic designer thing, you know it. Like when we're like, it's okay, it's about like what do they want? Let's just serve them, you know. And when it comes to us and our communications, we're like, it just ended up by word of mouth, and people are seeing the work in real life, you know. And we're so much about that. And it's been a blessing. A lot of like young decision makers are coming to us, the ones that see the value in what we do, or see the value in investing in that, which would give them like a return on their investment. Helped us a lot. And even in like the decision makers in we're not going to say policy makers just yet, but like even in the governmental, for example, as well, they're becoming younger, more understanding, more dynamic, you know.
Have you worked for any governmental cultural institutions?
Of course. I think we can. The main one's the big one, which we love so much, which is Jordanian Museum.
Yeah, it's a beautiful museum.
Yeah, it's because it's. I mean, they are truly fantastic. They bust any stereotype about like, you're gonna work with government. They're not gonna understand. They're like, no. If anything, I think it's. We do believe, I think Yousef and I also have that, is that we have so much respect of like, let's set our ego aside, you know, they know, بيعرفوا شغلتهم, they know their thing, they know what they are doing, so we kind of have to like create that mutual trust.
And I think also going back to I think the conversation is just a build up on things that we were discussing, is that even if we do not agree with the way of the way they do things, but there are several ways of doing things, so we just need to set our egos aside and just appreciate that there are things, understand that there are things that are done in different ways that we are used to, so we should learn from each other in order to come up with a solution that's not only fit for us as designers, but for them and the people who are visiting the museum.
Exactly.
I think you touched on something really important, like, you know, a lot of designers, they always say, the client, but I think if you work for the right client, it is always a partnership. Like you said, you learn from your client, they learn from you, they know their business, you know yours. If there's a mutual respect, then the collaboration is beneficial for everybody and better for everyone, and the design benefits from it.
And khalas, it's so passé, this whole thing, clients are from hell, you know, like this whole like
then
thing.
you don't work for clients from hell.
Exactly, but it's became like a thing, and it worries me because you see such young designers that get impacted, and I feel this is such an ad agency spirit. You know, like whole istighba, whole cheating of clients, you know, they think they're stupid, they think they're not smart enough. And so if young designers end up like going in like with that, it just festers into something that is not beneficial for either ones.
It's not client designer, it's a partnership, as you said, to form what we think is best for the ingredients are that give us like the best outcome for that brand, rather than our ego or the client's desire. It's coming together to form what's best for the brand.
I mean, I was going to ask you like, what is your specialization? But it sounds like more you are. I mean, it's interesting to listen to your attitude of how you work, rather than, you know, a specialization. Saying, I only do books and I only do letter, but you also said you have like 3 passions. And it's interesting that you separate culture from food, because I think food is also culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're like culture.
Culture.
Type is culture, food is culture, and culture is culture. It's all culture.
True.
And I mean, it's nice, like, to. I wanted to ask you, like, you said, people start to come to you, which means that in a way there is a kind of maturity of understanding of what design is in Jordan, in Amman in particular. So have you seen like this progress, and how does it affect, the younger generations? Can you talk about like your struggles, what are this? How is it developing the scene here, and what are things you would like to see more of, or how do you bring yourself into that conversation?
Speak for myself, but I also think this is something that Yousef and I share in common as well as Eyen, but perhaps it's just this. I think I'm a stupidly optimistic person, and I genuinely,
That's nice.
and I genuinely think. Hopelessly romantic, stupidly optimistic, you know it. But I always have more faith in the generations to come, because I feel like it's incremental. It's like building on learnings, and like if there is anything, I just consider it, okay, fantastic, yalla, add more layers, add more texture, add more depth. I have, perhaps because I also like to live in denial about my age and my aging self, but I have utmost respect for the younger generations, because they know what they want to do. They're coming out with these mind-boggling things, and like the way that they're maneuvering the industry, I think, and so refreshing. I think if there's anything, Arabic Letter Lab was actually the experience that just slapped us in the face. I do remember myself, I think after the second day, I even got emotional. I'm like,
Let's stop here. I want you to introduce it properly, because this is really important.
But it's just interacting with the young ones.
We can't not talk about this pandemic, because it changed the world and changed each one of us. And I think that it also made us all pause. And you were telling me that, Omar, that you were teaching during that pandemic, and so extension and getting in touch with, getting involved with younger generation, but then in a different, not in Eyen, which is a more collaborative open space, but in a kind of like teacher-student relationship. How was that experience, and was that where the idea of the Arabic design, the Arabic Letter Lab came out?
The Arabic Letter Lab idea, it actually predates it. You should know, because
you saw the first draft of the first proposal,
the very first deck.
The idea of the Arabic Letter Lab, what would you say it in
مختبر الحرف العربي.
مخربط العربي. Okay, مختبر الحرف العربي. When you had that first draft, when was that? I can't remember.
2017.
2017?
The first draft?
We wanted to make it in 2017.
Yeah.
It was 2016 actually. Right?
Really? The draft was in 2016?
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, and now then you came back and you said, now we can do it. This is a good moment. And I think in many ways it is a good moment, because it's a better moment, because there is far more people interested in Arabic typography, in lettering, in designing letters. There's far more designers in the region. So did you not only did you adapt it to the concept to this contemporary thing, and how did it come about? Maybe you can just explain how you made this, what was the idea behind it, how did the process go, etc., etc.
Another multifaceted question.
Multitasking.
Multifaceted. I am so multifaceted. Okay.
Okay. The first part about how it evolved, I think the Arabic Letter Lab, it being an experiment, was also for us an experiment.
Yeah.
So the whole process was not very linear between creating the first proposal, having the funding, doing the lab, and throughout the lab, I don't think the programming eventually on a day-to-day basis would change based on what we see. So yes, definitely between 2016 and 2022, things change, but not only because times have changed, but also because it was an experiment for us. It's the first time we do something of this magnitude. So we were just learning. We obviously got some great guidance on the first deck from you on how to go about funding and what we need to do, which slides do we need to explore further for people to be more interested, but also it's just the day-to-day that also between the open call, when to post the open call, how to post the open call, who to bring abroad. So things on a day-to-day basis would change. But
how long was this process? I'm gonna help you to kind of
we actually from
unpack the facets.
when we actually unshelved the proposal, we actually just Omar was back on a break from teaching in Egypt, and we're like, okay, you know what? Afaq has now an open call for funding for regional workshops and trainings. We never thought.
Afaq is the Arab Fund
for Arts and Culture. So we applied. We unshelved the proposal. We fixed it again, and we started seeing what are the requirements and filling them and preparing during this short trip that Omar had. And we're like, you know what, we're gonna do it, but honestly, we're like, yeah, let's try. And then, was it January? I don't remember.
When they announced November.
November, was it?
We submitted
June, July.
Yeah,
and then when they announced, and we got the email, and we're like, wait, what? So in the back of our heads, because again, we feel that not a lot of people are interested in design primarily, and then Arabic type. So it's there are so many layers that you'd feel like, and we were in the pandemic, so everything was like so hopeless, and we're like sitting. So and then when you get that, and we're like, oh, wait, what? It's happening. So we needed to then look back and
thank God it happened now, because we knew more. We experienced more. We wanted and didn't want more, but we always kind of and this is, I think, the most vital part of it, and I hope we're gonna keep holding on to it, is that it needs to have the humility of being an experiment always. It might shape shift right in the butt of the middle of it, it might it has to own up to that very fast-moving, dynamism that is there in the participants as well.
Because not only are they learning, but we are also learning along the way on how to conduct an experiment. So it's an experiment for us as well. We started off with wanting to form groups of students to create 4 typefaces only, and then day 2, me and Amma looked at each other like, no, we want 30. We saw that each designer has a voice, so why should we? We will keep the collaborative aspect of the workshop, but no, we can have 13 outcomes where each designer can express their own voice, because there is a need through Arabic typography to express individualism for us to be able to create the collective as well.
I think it's also nice that you, in your selection of contributors, tutors that came and each with their specialty, that everybody was Jordanian. So there was a nice Jordanian immersing in Jordanian culture.
True.
And I sometimes think that that's also part of overlooked in the design work, the particularities of certain countries. And there is, of course, the big stars in Egypt. Everything is Egyptian when we think of Arabic, but there are also pockets of very particular, very unique cultures within the region that we kind of don't think about or we take for granted. So was that also in the back of your mind when you made your selection, inviting specifically Jordanian designers? Because that's, for me,
but
not to be nationalistic.
Actually,
it's not about being nationalistic.
I'm going to go back to saying it was an experiment for us as well. So eventually I think things fell together where eventually we had a Jordanian team. We also had a French on board, but because it was an experiment.
I forgot the French.
No, it's fine, but we'll tap into that as well.
Majority.
So I think it just because it's an experiment in its nature, it all fell into it guided us to that within what happened along the way to eventually have a Jordan team, which we were okay, wait. So I'm just gonna say Samar, who's a dear friend of ours as well as personally, but as Eyen as well, and we're and then she is a type designer. Okay, so she should be on board this. So she should be on board this. And then there's Hussein, who's Kenz, who's so he should be here. And then there's Tawfiq, who used to collaborate with us as Eyen is now loved by the younger generation. So we needed to. So it just all like the stars aligned, I think, like for us. And then we needed for instance, and then we had to, because we were learning the technical aspect. So we got Leo through Samar, who's French, but we needed that technical aspect that we couldn't find locally, because again, let's say in Jordan, at least, like type design is, sorry, like I can't name other than Samar, another like Ali. Samar and Ali and Hussein as type designers, but then for the technicalities, I think with time we'd probably have more Jordanians who can teach the technical aspect, but we needed to have that component as part of the workshop as well.
What made you decide to like publish make a book out of it? Because that's also I think important to document the experiment, you know? I think it's important to document and share the experiment, even though it's like wild.
Do you want the answer that is in Yousef's head now? Because Omar wanted to make a book.
No, I think I'm sorry.
And what does Yousef feel about it?
No, I think I'm going to go back to similar to how it was an experiment. Literally, we had a program when we created the first proposal that included workshop, learning, free open source typefaces, website, publication. So we had those pillars. But then along the way, because it was an experiment, eventually we started figuring out what the editorial was, what the intention of the publication was, but we knew there would be a publication out of this experiment. And I think for us as Eyen as well, it's very important for us. We believe in publication, we believe in the importance of a book. And so it had to, no matter what shape that publication would have taken, we had to have that element as part of the letter lab.
Yeah. I mean, I look at, sitting here in our studio and I see like you love books as much as I do. But also I think it's important to have this, and it's very generous of you that you make it available for people, because there is no specialized bookshops. Often you can't find books, and certainly not books on design from the region. So every experiment that every one of us does, whatever it is, and especially when it's like based on research and looking at culture, should be documented and keep that experimental feel.
Absolutely, it might be like it goes away from the narratives of like trying to live forever, but in a sense we feel like there was such value and learnings and understandings. There was such value and learnings and understandings that happened during the workshop that we didn't just want to do like a measly catalog, or just like a booklet of showing, that it was cute. That's why we kind of like extended it further, to even like instill more hope and ambition into the participants. That yes, you can be out there. You can put yourself out there. You can show off, and also to get a bit of hearing apart, to know what's the purpose of all of this. That's why there were conversations that surrounded local context, design research, local design learning, the nuances of Arabic letter, that I think should like culminate eventually always in a publication. And I do believe in the power of it. It's because an Instagram story goes away, the post is going to go somewhere, the website, okay, tamam, it's important, but a publication stays, I think. And listen, we're not going to like beat around the bush or like even try to like, we're not kissing ass here, but like we saw what you did, with typographic matchmaking, either one or two in the city. And I think we felt it was almost like kind of the way of like, putting a bit of that, self-awareness and like understanding the importance of what these young designers do. Through doing that, through putting it together in a publication.
And I think tapping on that is that when we were younger designers, we'd look at Khatt and what you'd be doing, and I'm like, we don't have these opportunities back home.
Yeah.
So it's very important. It's in Jordan. And then we look at our peers who are Lebanese who are participating in such experiments with you, and we'd like, okay. So I think it's part of our mission coming back and like establishing this is how can we create experiences for younger designers that we did not have.
Yeah.
That we've learned through you and other people as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I also think, like the proof that you're tapping on the right thing of, the presentations yesterday. We had, a kind of light presentation, beautiful setup, and you make a setup for the seating, and then like 3 times as much people come than you expected. So that's very, encouraging.
Yeah.
People that also are, studying art history or like architecture, or so that's also for me very important. But was what I found really, and I think that's like the challenge is if you do it again, how do you keep that momentum? Is that in the end, the discussions were really incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, people will walk away with the book. If not this time, they would definitely do it again. And would want to know, would want to say something. And I thought that, some of the questions were very difficult, and they pulled out all these like contested statements that we had to kind of, battle with.
Yeah.
And again, with your idea of collaborative thing, everybody who was part of this workshop, whether they are, taking it to learn or whether they were there giving course, were also engaged in this conversation. So. One, I think, that's a proof that you should do it again. But also, I wonder whether this is also maybe like how do you feel about it? Would this be something that could be in the future, not just a design studio that also works with clients and produces, good presentations or good design work for them? Or is it going to become a bigger hub where it's also, like you said, a place where these discussions can happen and there would be more of them, more. Is that something you would be interested in organizing in the future?
Well, I don't think we would have done this if we weren't interested in having it live on. Obviously, it wasn't a one-time thing. This is why it's dated as 2022 as experiment 1.
We want to experiment more. Yeah.
We want to experiment more. There's an experiment 2, 3, 4. And again, as Omar said, no matter in what shape or form, but that's the point, is that we're going to keep on experimenting year after year, hopefully. And it was the first time where we host such activities within our working space, and we were testing the space to see how it works, with it being a working space versus a space for a talk versus a space for an exhibition, for a workshop. Yeah. And luckily it was designed as such, so it works as such, but we've never tested it as such.
And our true hope isn't to just like create things for the great legacy of Eyen, but we would love if there's like an echo in the city.
Yeah.
If there are like other people would like just like, like feel that flame, like kind of get encouraged to like, there we go, there is a crowd, there is something happening, there are people that want to come, to create more of that. We have to talk about the elephant in the room. We did the Arabic letter lab as this experimental Arabic typeface workshop, type design workshop, and it's because as a response, we love Jordan, we love design, but we're heartbroken by the design education in Jordan.
Yeah.
So, and as you said also in the presentation yesterday, we need to keep thinking about it in an alternative sense, to kind of keep giving ourselves the liberty to, experiment even more, like maneuver and like challenge and shapeshift before we like make it into.
I mean, that's also like, it's interesting that you guys are graphic designers doing this kind of workshop. It's different from if you were type designers giving this workshop. I'm very interested in your point of view as graphic designers about Arabic typography today, and how you think, where we can push more, what is lacking, what is it when you're trying to design that you can't find, that you find is limiting in some ways. What are things that really bother you? out there. And I don't mean just Jordan, because Arabic typefaces, they are produced all over the world.
Yeah.
All sorts of people. They're not all of them are Arabs.
There are several elements, I think, to we'd like to keep questioning what is required or needed, perhaps, for the makings of, like, we're not going to say better, but, like, more engaged future generations of, like, designers, whether it being Jordanian, Palestinian, of course, very important. So probably our frustrations would come from, again, we're going to say it, is that the education here is not understanding the huge potential that these students have. It's not matching the wild imaginations that we have, the insane brains and, like, idea making spirits that we have here. So I think we can definitely say this is probably something that we keep, like, moaning about, is that, like yalla, where are so unless you take these leaps of faith of, like, saying, oh, this has good potential, but unfortunately in our business it's like it's portfolio based, and it's like students' work based on work that they've done in the university.
Yeah.
So we cannot blame them. They might be, like, fantastic, like, they're like seed of a designer, but they're not being, like, maxed on, like, they just end up, like,
which is what we saw in the workshop between the open call and the selection, and when meeting the designer and seeing what they're capable of, and doesn't match your portfolio because they haven't had the opportunities to explore. The point of this is we need to break the fear to experiment with the Arabic letter. And this is the point, because we need individual voices within Arabic typography, because typography is in itself a visual expression of our voices.
Yeah.
So if I end up doing, which we again need on that side, fantastic nasakh inspired typefaces that I can use in long runs of text, amazing, let's keep doing that. But on the side, we need something that challenges that gives me something that I can use for a headline, that I can use for a branding project, that I can use for communication, that has more of an individual voice rather than a properly done voice that's based on a certain style, let's say. So I'd say something that lives more on a vernacular end rather than on a let's say a publication, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think this is also what lacks for us as graphic designers in Arabic typography, is something that has more of a voice, more of a character, more of an individualist expression to use. And this is where lettering also comes in, interestingly, where us as graphic designers, we start, if we don't find the typeface we want, we start lettering the headline. We can letter.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting to see, but lettering becomes part of our individual voice. But what if I want your individual voice expressed through typography?
I think you touched on something really important of, this idea that we need after the pragmatic, useful, traditional existing typefaces. They can be modernized a little bit. They exist. But how do we take it to a point where they are more expressive? And I always like this, the lettering experiments of the 60s, because they were lettering. What I found really interesting is that looking at the work in the book from the experiments that the students were making, was that their lettering was really far bolder than when they went into typography, because when they started to do a type design, they had to kind of reduce things, and somehow they are not at a level where they can bring still that energy into the typeface without the typeface becoming completely lettering and not a typeface. So I thought it was very interesting. One of the people yesterday was, kind of saying, well, what are the rules? We're always talking about rules. And he was really adamant that people should learn the rules. And I said, yeah, but if you start to buy very complex rules, you're going to be discouraged. The better thing, and which is what you saw in this workshop, is that you give people the freedom to experiment, make mistakes, do whatever they want, and then you discuss the rules. Because then the rules start to be like something that is a kind of support rather than a barrier. It's always in our culture and in the world in general, in the type design, there is these kind of like fanatics, that say, these are the rules and these are sacred and these are this right and you can never do something next to that.
You're already an Arab person. You're already an Arab designer, so you're starting at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So why should I discipline you even more? To like, even when it comes to your own, as Yousef said, to your own like way of expression, why should I police you? To like even, like kind of like limit you into like a certain corner of using scripts that we only know, thank you to the Ottomans, that we just have to like abide by, I think we do need to at least have, even if it's like for a millisecond, even for if it's such a short period of time, to have a bit of courage, to go with something that is like punchy, and have almost a dissident voice, rebel, and I think rebellion doesn't necessarily mean that you create certain things that look like a certain way, blacks, it's about like challenging the notions of it, So yeah, of course I'm gonna get a bit heated. Apparently yesterday, somebody told me that we should like, even more, we're saying like, don't you dare mimic the West, but don't you dare not do this according to your own heritage, and then on the flip side saying, respect the proportions of the golden ratio. I'm like, la. We deserve our own punk
there
era.
Were too many don't.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we want to do everything you say we're not supposed to.
Let them fail.
Because sometimes it's really good to make mistake. Of course, you do something and maybe in 10 days, like in a week's time, later on they come, they look at it, they're like, what, I think this is important.
This is important.
It's not important to feed them what they should do, because then we keep on doing the same thing.
Our culture.
Why can't we imitate the West if we're going to imitate the Ottomans? I mean, imitation is imitation.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And we're being categorized already, and our cultural expression in the like, whether it's going to happen on a like global scale, it already has to abide to like Western schools of thought, be it in cinema or in art or in performance or in in music. We deserve to have our own punk era, that anti-establishment spirit, that fearlessness. Try it, fail.
Freedom.
We have a مثل بالعربي كل واحد بيتعلم من كيسه, which means you learn from your own experiences. I'm not gonna teach you my mistakes and like tell you do not go there. No.
I think this is why the Arabic Letter Lab in the methodology of how it was conducted was important. What's important is that we just left them to explore. We just gave them the tools. Even the experts that were on board did not instruct. They were just giving them the tools, how to use the software. Tamam. What is the process of sketching? How do you get inspired by the letter? What is the history of these letters? So you just give them the tools, and then at the end of the day, not memorizing the Ottoman history on typography to go into an exam. No, we're just giving you the path to go through it for you to explore, and maybe also surprise us by taking a different path and telling us,
surprise yourself. Exactly.
It's very important. I'm curious, what is the project that you've done that you're like really super enjoyed, or the project that you thought was really important, you're really happy you did that?
Now I'm now looking at all the projects.
It's not a trick question.
I mean, I can say what mine is, and you can say what yours
exactly.
is.
I don't know what mine is. You can say what yours is. I'm like.
It's a very difficult
I would
question.
definitely relive the experience of the Jordan Museum again.
Yeah.
Interesting.
100%, because the fact that we got the privilege to like talk to so many people, and while we conducted the design research with Nada Jaffral, that was fascinating. And I'm trying to remind Yousef and like think about how smooth it went as well,
Yeah.
That 9 p.m. presentation request that we did. I think there was I think that's probably in terms of like enjoyable. we do have a fun.
Was
with all
it
of them.
also because the content was like really exciting? I mean, the research that you had to do,
Absolutely.
what you learned from it.
It's insane questions that came up that also like questioned our own like notions and questions of identity, whether it's topics of like belonging or innovation or optimism or pessimism or like, because we tapped into all of this. So it was very it was quite an eye-opening one, but it was thoroughly enjoyable. But we do have fun with all of them. I think that's the secret formula.
What was the project you did that you most enjoyed doing?
Personally, I think I enjoy smaller projects, intimate projects.
Because it's suitable with your shy personality.
I think it's this is what I want to say, is this is where I think Eyen works.
Can I guess yours?
I can't tell. I'd say either Kama maybe,
Yousef,
or like, because I'm proud of the result. But things that also challenge me in a production sense with the result of how do you produce things.
Kama, local gourmet.
Packaged gourmet, packaged goods.
So you really
food
like
packaging, something that's like
the crafty,
super tactile.
But also, if you think of it, like it's both. Although food is culture, but both even Kama has a cultural.
Exactly.
So both of us, like, yes, something that's cultural would attract us.
But I
think Omar is more of the people and of like the conversation. I'm more about being alone and trying to understand how things can work.
So if anybody would ask me like, what is Yousef as a designer, I say it's Kama. It's that by the millimeter, sorry, I don't know what the unit is aslan, by the millimeter, like precise, meticulous, very much like Yousef.
We're blessed to have partners, I'm not going to say clients, like who trust us, and so we're able to like do more and show more,
What do you imagine is going to be the most important thing in the future for design in Jordan or design in general?
Important, difficult question.
No, it's an important but difficult question. Yes.
What do you think is important? You said?
It's going to be important in the future for design in the region. What is going to be important for us? It could be ideas, could be things we do. I don't know. What is important in your mind?
I think, I'm going to say, as designers, it's going to be important for us in the future, particularly in the near, before the distant future, to make sure that we understand our locality while we are being immersed within a global society. So not to forget, because I see like with younger generations, we somehow forget the locality at a certain point, and because we're super exposed to what's happening and we're part of a global citizen and all that. So I think to just maintain that rootedness within a culture, within an understanding of your locale, I think that would be very important to maintain in the future. And I think going back to what Omar said, like in the beginning of this conversation about education, and I think this is where it comes, where we don't even know the history of our own land in the sense of the importance it had in the script we use today, for instance, as designers even. So I think this is where a localized educational initiative is extremely important for us to be able to know that, to keep that living for future generations as well, but also beyond the local, as the individual expression as a designer, the individual expression as a society, which is very important as a voice, because our voice, although we do belong to the Levant, our voice is different than the voice of someone from Lebanon.
We are such plural people that sometimes we don't understand the dangers of like لما بنعدم الانفرادية, when we kind of like axe any sense of like individualism,
Type any advice for like young people?
Trust your gut, because everything that you can find, I think, work with truth. Think about like seeking truth, whatever it may be, if something is truthful for the message that you're saying, for the narrative, for the tool, for whatever it may be, go for it. Whenever, like, try to stop yourself whenever you feel like you're doing gimmicks or you're trying to mimic. Don't mimic and gimmick. Maybe that's it.
Don't
mimic and gimmick.
Final statement.
And don't mimic and gimmick, and don't be afraid to take risks. Just I think design is about taking risks and landing somewhere. Whether
as you
it's
said,
right
fearlessness.
or wrong. Yeah, be fearless and experiment. Don't underestimate or belittle public taste. We do not know better than people. We learn from people, and we are communicating for the people. Therefore, we should learn from them and understand what actually, what attracts them, what gets the message across to them, not what gets the message across to me.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you, and it was really a pleasure being here and you getting me involved in this project with you. And I mean, I never thought we would ever collaborate, and there it is. It happened. I'm so happy about it.
You don't understand
and I look forward
joy.
to like the future, future collaborations, future talks, future, books.
Absolutely.
Drawings, whatever we
Experiments.
make together. I really
Whatever form they may take.
Whatever form they may take.
Labs.
I love the lab coats, but that was a really cool touch. I was like, can I get one? I know I have nothing to do with it. I probably will never wear it. I just like it.
So for next experiment, next lab, you will be involved and you'll get the full lab kit.
Experience. The fur
fluorescent.
so I can wear it in the cold.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.